Le Chat qui Fume is one of the finest boutique labels in Europe right now, one of my very favorites. This is a limited edition. Now I have number 752 here, and that was limited to 2,000 copies, and they went pretty quickly. Mediabook Digipack, those are my favorite types of packaging when it comes to films, although I also really enjoy it when it's just a normal case with a slipcover, with a slipcase. Now that's also really fantastic. This is very nice saturated colors. The blacks are black. It's nice and sharp, so they had a good high-resolution images to work from. There is nice, fantastic bold lettering here on the spine, so that looks fantastic on your shelf. You know, yellow and black, that's just great. There is a very beautiful menu screen. Now, this is something about Blu-rays which I find a bit disappointing in comparison to DVDs. It's the menus. I think a lot of, even some of the better labels out there, they are not really putting so much care into designing menus when it comes to Blu-rays, because obviously, you know, the sales are not what they used to be and everything. So sometimes the menus look a bit generic, or they have like several films, lots of discs where the menu is basically the same. They just, you know, change the background picture or something, and that's really dull. And another thing I really what really upsets me a little bit about some Blu-rays is that there is no chapter selection menu, and that's the case here as well. There is no chapter selection. You can skip through the film using the remote, but you don't have the proper menu screen, which is a shame, because it's good if it's a favorite film of yours. Sometimes you just want to, you know, navigate straight to your favorite scene without having to skip through the actual full feature. And yeah, we don't have this option here, but then again, there are so many pluses here. Look at this, isn't it just great? So it's a digipack, which I think is the superior form of packaging. So you have the DVD with the main feature, the DVD with the extras, and then everything all in one on the Blu-ray. And the image quality is really good. First of all, it's a film that was shot on 35mm, so that authentically looks good. Then they didn't scrub it with any, you know, denoiser, filter or anything, so it's a nice filmic texture. I mean, it wasn't like an epic blockbuster, but they really took care with lights and everything, so it has a great 80s aesthetic to it. Again, the way, you know, the way the colors and their, you know, what they're wearing and stuff, and the textures in the background pop. This is really wonderful, nice to look at. Again, no complaints on the sound is good. The extras, now there is a whole bunch of them, and I'll be frank with you, you know, I haven't always got the time to go through all the extras, but I really appreciated the trailer show on this disc. There is trailers for Dario Argento's opera, Michele Soavi's The Church, which are some of my favorite films, actually. It's always fun before you know, actually get on with the main feature to go through the trailers, and sometimes it gives you ideas what you want to watch next. And this is why I find it a little bit a bit of a shame that I realized that on some of the more recent discs I got from Le Chat qui Fume, they don't feature that trailer show anymore, and yeah, I kind of miss that. I really, to me, it's a real plus when I get a couple of trailers not related to the main feature on the same disc. I think that's always fun and great. Now this French label, Le Chat qui Fume, this is one of my favorite labels at the moment. They have grown on me so much. I got their first Blu-ray, which was Lucio Fulci's Lizard in a Woman's Skin, and I was really impressed by that one, and I think this was my second purchase from them once they started branching out into a bit more into better known films, you know. So this was one of their more mainstream titles at the time, and then they soon after followed it up with bringing Halloween 2 and 3 to Blu-ray in France. Back then, Le Chat qui Fume was still kind of, you know, gaining sort of fans, and so this was not such a difficult film to buy at the time. Whereas now, when they bring a very highly sought after title, immediately the international fans are alerted, and the items, you know, are sold out much faster, I find, than a couple of years ago, and that's good. I hope that label keeps on going for, you know, as long as, because they're great. They have a very a very interesting taste in film. They sort of, you know, they have like parallel streams of some very obscure world, even art house films or art house bordering on exploitation, on horror, as well as some of the more traditional, bigger horror films, like I said, like the Halloween films, which they brought, or they got this one, and then Return of the Living Dead Part 3, the Brian Usner film. So yeah, I really like Le Chat qui Fume, and one of the main reasons for this video is basically to share my appreciation and to support that label. I think they have been really doing great, and at the moment they have some really amazing films on their slate. Like I'm very excited about them putting out Blue Sunshine in the near future, and then they have several interesting European, again, exploitation films. There is the whole slate of them which are lined up to come out sometime this year, I guess. If I enjoy the main feature, I watch that, and that usually inspires me to go on and pick and watch some other film right afterwards. It's a kind of a chain reaction thing, so I usually leave the extras for later and never get back to them. But occasionally, yeah, you pick up the film off the shelf just to admire it, but then you put it on, you think, okay, I don't want to watch the main film today, but I'll go through the extras, and this is how you maybe stumble upon some cool interview or making of or whatever. Now, what I've found on this one here, on Return of the Living Dead, they have the full frame version of the film as an extra. It's sourced from a VHS tape, and it's in French only, with the French titles and everything, and it's basically the whole film, but you can see a lot more information at the top, at the bottom of the frame, which would have been cut off in the widescreen version, which is how it was presented theatrically. And I really enjoyed that. Now, I don't speak French, but you know, you don't really have to understand much French if you know the film by heart anyways, like, you know, Sedmore Paramedics or Brains, you know. So the language barrier isn't really a big deal with this particular film here. Oh yeah, and that release also originally came with a booklet, which has some stills, some in black and white, some in color, and there is no text in this booklet, it's just the pictures, and it's a nice touch. Obviously, collectors will appreciate some iconic images in this booklet. About the film itself, it's a classic. I'm not the one to tell you about Return of the Living Dead. I'm sure you know it, otherwise why would you be watching this? I mean, to me personally, this film, having bought this, it's like going back to my early teens. It's a kind of, you know, just a memory, because this film was one of the first 1980s zombie films I've watched in my life, I think. I must have seen The Evil Dead and probably George Romero's Day of the Dead, and that was probably the third American zombie film from the 1980s that I got to watch, and I remember renting it on tape at a rental store. Back then my hometown had plenty of rental stores, so I would just go out there and get some, you know, what at the time was really sick and shocking, like films, Brian Usner films and the Hellraiser films. And so I took this one and I loved it, watching it. I mean, I'm not really into like horror comedy films, but I think Return of the Living Dead has very sharp writing, and actually it's quite subtly directed as well, so that you're never distracted too much by the style of the film from the acting or from the hilarious situations, which are so well written. So it's a real, I mean, I'm sure, I mean, it's an important film. It's a real milestone when it comes to like good commercial 1980s horror cinema. It's got a bit of blood, but not too much. It's not like an ultra-violent film. However, the effects are amazing for its time, and they're all practical effects, and this is what makes these sort of films so special to me. I mean, I absolutely love you know, prosthetics and practical effects, and this is a shining example of how it's done without having an epic budget. They got some great monsters in there and everything. Now, I can't say that this is like the film I watch all too often, because like I said, horror comedies is not really my favorite genre, but it's a great memento, like I said, from my young days. And again, just having this on the shelf with this absolutely fantastic cover artwork, it's a great prized part of my collection. So I often just, you know, take it off the shelf and just, it's pretty amazing.